Hello, good evening, and welcome to the War Room. This is our daily coverage of the Russians' illegal incursion into the Ukraine. Sorry if I'm pausing, it's just yesterday I said the Ukraine's invasion into the Ukraine, and that was obviously wrong. Anyway, today is day 15 of a war that Vladimir Putin thought would only take 3 days. So you really have to hand it to the Ukrainians for being so resilient. I forgot to even go into my own server. Sorry about that. One of these days, I swear, I'm going to get everything right. But now I'm in the right room, as you can see. So here we go. We're here. That is the latest battle map that you're looking at today. I don't have the rolling thumbnails like we did yesterday, because yesterday was kind of like a landmark interval day, 14 days of hell, which nobody thought was going to happen or even be possible. But I think what that shows is just how amazing and resilient the Ukrainian people are. I mean, especially when you're actually defending your country and your very lives. So, all right, I just got a message that Mikhail Knightstrikesky won't make it, but I do have other panelists, so it's going to be fine. We'll get through it. It looks like, man, I got something special for you today. For the story of the day, I'm going to play a video for you, and it was nothing short of absolutely amazing. So when we get to that segment, I'll have to warn my panelists to mute so they can jump over to the YouTube side to see the video along with the rest of you. And it's gonna be mega. That's all I can say, because what happened today at the Senate Intel Committee was nothing short of brilliant, because that has left all the media and all the pundits and all the citizenry who took the time to watch this, and it's making them start to ask questions. There's a buzz going. As for how the war is going, the figures and statistics had been updated today, which I have left in the scroller below. Realistically speaking, I would always say take it with a grain of salt. However, the victor always inflates their numbers, and the defeated always waters down their numbers. But in this case, the defenders are putting out some pretty serious numbers. So I take it with a grain of salt, but so far we have no reason not to believe it, especially seeing just burning Hulk after burning Hulk after burning Hulk. Good evening to you, Squib, and that is one of the stories I have today. However, I didn't want to dignify her indignity by sharing that story, but that is true that Vice President Knee Pads did show up to Poland yesterday, and she did not bring her knee pads. She should have brought a raincoat, because I think everyone in Poland was ready to spit on her. And as we discussed yesterday, she was supposed to go to take a victory lap for the Polish MiG deal. And obviously, the Defense Department put the kibosh on that, but she was already on the itinerary. And then she went and made a complete fool of herself. And as the Queen of Tells, as I like to call her, the second she was asked a question that she clearly knows nothing about, or has no experience in, or no confidence in answering, she did her retarded little cackle, and even the president of Poland stuck his hand out like, seriously, stop it. This is supposed to be a serious discussion here. You're acting like a child. You can see it in the corner of the screen. His hand is out there like, what the hell are you doing? So it did happen, but I'm not really going to dignify it in today's news. There was too many other things that went on today that she doesn't deserve the time. But I did cover the fact that she went. I've got a little bit of detail for it. It's just, it wasn't positively newsworthy. It was another geopolitical embarrassment on the diplomatic stage. So anyway, when I get to the video segment, I promise I'll tell you all to get it prepared. It will be on the screen, so for you guys on the YouTube side, you will be able to watch it and hear it, and then I'll have to get my panelists to flip over to YouTube, so there might be like a slight delay just so they can get in there. But anyway, I'm just going to bring both panelists in now. You already know my tradesman, Scott, and then Desert Deagleton, who came along a little bit later, but he's actually been pretty cool and solid as a panelist. So let me just go ahead and start dragging both of them in. I won't do the
Good.
individual intros. Sorry, I probably should have gave you guys a warning that I was going to do that.
We're
But you're
here.
here. I mean, at least you weren't like screaming about, anal midget porn and purple monkey dishwashers and stuff. So it's probably fine.
Oh,
I just did
that
it
was
for you.
5 seconds before.
I just did it for you, so we're good. So anyway, like I was saying, it's day 15, and that's the new updated battle map. It's not cut off. I just cut it off at the edge of the left side of the screen because no details are over there. It's just more map. So I cut it short, but the country goes a little further over. So as you can see, there's a lot of troop movement, and there's a lot of news involving that today too. So we'll definitely get to that as well. Um, Go ahead and just, I guess, address the chat. So I have a good evening to Shady Hill, Terry Shear, and Squibload, and I know there's probably others. They're just watching and lurking, so that's cool too. Um, if this is your first day here, then cool, welcome. There's an entire playlist for this particular series called The War Room. I guess it's my version of the Great War in real time instead of Indy Nidell's week by week, but I'm giving it to you day by day, hopefully until it's over, and hopefully for not too much longer. Like, I don't mind doing this, and I'm very fascinated in the history that's being made here, but I'd rather not do this because it's not something I want to cover. And in terms of content, it's an important thing, and I felt compelled to do it. I might not be the best at it, but I still felt compelled to do it. And I would rather it be over and I have to go figure out something else to record for you guys than this, but it's here,
Or
so
Anaconda.
I could show you more Anaconda, yes. I could show you more Python, yes. And damn it,
I'll show you my Python if you show me yours.
my Anaconda don't want none. But I'm actually in an auction for a second Anaconda because I'm just a detestable idiot, and now I'm trying to buy an 8-inch Anaconda. So somebody stop me. Well, because somebody else is buying the Kunin that you found. So anyway,
If it's still there.
spoilers. All right, let's go ahead and get going because Jesus, I got a lot of crap to cover, and a lot of the narratives of these stories are pretty long. So I may not have a bunch of stories, but I've got a lot of context. And yes, as Squib said, it is illegitimately selected Vice President knee pads because she's the most unlikable person in the DNC, and she was the only person. She was chosen over people who actually earned delegates during the primary, and that pisses me off. But for every door that's slammed shut, there's a window that's open, and hopefully Tulsi Gabbard jumped out that window and left her party because she realizes Ola Vistov not that. It's just I got to get rid of one. So, that being said, did I do that right? Yes, I did. Okay, so that's taken care of. Um, Shit, that derailed with my line of thought. Oh, yeah, so even though we got stuck with her, somebody who did get delegates who would have been a much better choice didn't end up being the vice president, who would have just been slowly corrupted by her shitty party that clearly abandoned her. So maybe she'll see the light, and as long as she doesn't go anti-gun and drops that, I'll listen to her, among other things. Anyway, did I say that? I said the quiet part out loud again. Damn it. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Strangely enough, the first story of the day for you guys actually hit me at midnight. So I did the cutoff of the show before midnight my time, obviously, but it would have already been 8 a.m. Ukrainian time. And what makes this particularly alarming and disturbing is what this person is. So who he is and what he works for and what he created is dangerous, but what he is even more weird. So anyway, here's the picture, and I'll explain the photo a little bit, but this is the guy. The Putin-linked hit squad in Ukraine allegedly hunting President Zelensky. The Wagner Group is in Ukraine tasked with hunting down and killing President Zelensky and his wife. It's basically their only task. The Russia's private paramilitary group is led by this guy. His name is Dmitry Utkin. Utkin has been alleged to have sympathies with the Third Reich by the Latvia-based Medusa and is believed to be a neo-Nazi by the British National World.
Is that why they call him the Wagner Group?
Yes, because he was
figured.
fascinated with Wagner. In 2022, images surfaced of Utkin purportedly showing off his Waffen-SS tattooed collar and his Reichsadler eagle tattoos. Yeah. Additionally, several prominent members of the Wagner Group have also been photographed or recorded in Nazi uniforms or taking parts in reenactments of World War II events. Oh, great. They're just lunatic LARPs. The only problem is these guys are very good at what they do. They have a stack of bodies that you can't even keep count with. What they did in Syria, what they've done in, I want to say it was during the Serbian War too. Like, these guys are evil. But it was the tattoos that I wanted to show you that I found particularly interesting. Not because he's a neo-Nazi, but because this plays into a bit of a narrative that we talked about yesterday, which, if you're a regular listener on my week in review, which was, just the Saturday stuff that we did before this thing here, I would always comment about how the DNC playbook has one page, and on that one page it just says, always preemptively accuse the other side for which you are guilty of or about to be guilty of first. And if all else fails, racist, sexist, homophobe, xenophobe, usually that works. That's the only thing on the DNC playbook. You can write it on a napkin. Anyway, the reason I brought that up was because this guy's a neo-Nazi, right? And he's been working for Putin for over a decade. And what is Putin saying about the people of Ukraine? Like, what he's fighting, right? So he's basically saying that he's in there because he has to denazify the Ukraine, and he's using
Nazi to do it.
He's using this asshole, right? Like, how does that work? And then he turns around and, what was it, yesterday? I think we talked about this. It was either yesterday or today, but now the Russians are accusing the United States of creating biological weapons in Ukraine, which is just his precursor of saying, I'm about to use biological weapons in Ukraine like I did in Syria. Like, is this guy that stupid? Yeah, he is. The funniest story I have about Vladimir Putin came from Condoleezza Rice. She went and spoke to him at a NATO meeting or something, and she said something that really pissed him off, and he stood up, like, to show off he was offended, and she wasn't gonna, like, just take it, sitting down. So she stood up and she looked down on him because apparently he's a sawed-off little runt. And then he sat back down. Never, ever, ever incur the wrath of an angry black woman. You will not win. I can speak from experience. I've dated a few. I've pissed them off, and I never came out the other side without missing something. Anyway, let's move on. That guy, what the hell? Him and his merry band of LARPing murderers, they're in that country. They're on campaign, and they have one task. It kind of makes you wonder, how much are they getting paid for this? Because in his outfit in the Wagner Group, some of the people are making, well, before the ruble completely went to shit, he was paying his people, the really good ones, 300,000 rubles a month, which apparently is quite a bit of money. Well, before this, now it's like, I don't think you can buy a stick of gum and a blowjob for 300,000 rubles. Anyway, I know I should be keeping it clean and keeping the vulgarity out to stay more personable and legit, but it's just like, I don't have a filter, I'm sorry. And stuff like this just pisses me off, and, I'm pretty sure I'm Mark Levin's illegitimate love child. Anyway, let me fix this. I just noticed I got the little stupid borders off or whatever. It's just OCD. Screw it. That's good enough. Whatever. You guys don't mind, right? All right, so let's move on. About an hour later, I get up because apparently I forgot to let the dogs out, and they got to go out at 1 in the morning. And just coincidentally, my RSS feed's going crazy in my ear. So, next picture I got for you is the Ministry of Defense, the UK Ministry, or Defense, I think that's what it's called, the UK Defense Ministry. Anyway, Russian troops northwest of Kyiv have made, quote, little progress in a week and are suffering continued losses due to Ukraine's resistance, according to the Thursday morning update from the UK's Defense Ministry. The update said Russians have decreased air activity in the last few days, likely due to the unexpected effectiveness and endurance of the Ukrainian Air Force or Air Defense Forces. Russia's also deployed conscript troops, despite publicly saying that he wouldn't this week. As casualties mount, President Putin will be forced to draw from across the Russian armed forces and other sources to replace his losses. Now, keep in mind, as of, I think it was 2 days ago, Scott, he's all in. 3 days ago, 95% of his original force was in country with a 5% reserve. The day after it was 98, and now he's all in. So whatever he's losing now, like if that 12,000 troop thing is real, then he's going to have to start bringing in the Syrians, and he's going to have to hire more Belarusians, and he's going to have to call for more Chechens, and maybe he'll even have to start moving people out from Vladivostok over here, bring them on campaign.
Oh, that's what I've been hearing.
Which would be
he's been
nuts.
shifting forces from the Far East.
Right, which is going to leave him vulnerable to China.
Which are at least a week to a week and a half out.
Well, it depends. I mean, what if someone just happens to man-pad a couple of cargo planes full of troops that just came in from the east on their landing approach? Oops. Oops.
That's a good possibility.
Yeah.
But, I mean, heavy forces
are
at least a week and a half out.
Oh.
Because those are going to move by train, and it's a week to get from the Far East anywhere.
I want to talk about something that I forgot to the last couple of days. And now it's too late because the convoys... Well, we'll get to what happened to the convoy, but essentially an opportunity was lost, right? Good evening, Ellis. So, what I want to talk about is Mike Pompeo. He and a couple of retired generals had discussed that the only options we had were covert ops. Like, that's the buzzword that most of those guys were saying for the last, 7 or 8 days, right? And it makes you wonder, what could we have done covertly to make that convoy disappear? And this is what I came up with. And I have a theory. And I hope I'm wrong. But do you ever get the impression that the B-2 stealth bomber isn't actually stealthy anymore?
Not.
Because, I mean, follow me here. The troops in the convoy have no night vision. They don't move at night. The whole north part of that convoy, they don't move. Which means either they don't have night vision, or they don't know how to use it, or it just doesn't work. Plus their trucks are breaking down, right? Plus they're sometimes out of gas. That was the rumor.
Damn Chinese tires.
And the Chinese tires and the CTIS, exactly. We actually have photographic evidence of that, so that part's true, right? But here's the question I have. If you wanted to do a covert op, what's more covert than flying over that convoy at 40,000 feet at 2:37 a.m. and just you pepper the ever-living shit out of that convoy with as many bombs as you can carry on a flight of B-2s, and then just bank away and disappear into the darkness of night. And then the next morning, it's just a field of death, and everyone's scratching their head going, what the hell happened here? Nothing was on radar. Obviously, the Russian air defenses had no clue, and yet this convoy is gone. Why didn't that happen? My only thought is the B-2 isn't stealthy anymore. Somebody must have found a way to make that not a viable tactic. That is as covert an op as you can do. Inflicting maximum damage, right? There's no denying that.
Well, here's the thing. The B-2 flies out of one base.
Yeah, Missouri.
Yes, they forward deploy sometimes to like Diego Garcia.
Still, it doesn't matter. They
For the
could
most
make that
part,
trip.
they fly. Oh, absolutely! It's unlimited range with air-to-air refueling.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If you sent
If
them
they
out
take
on
off
day
from
3,
one base,
yeah,
you don't think Putin probably has somebody watching that base?
no,
So they know they took off. So an appropriate number of hours later, his convoy gets vaporized.
plausible
And
deniability.
somebody does the calculation that, oh, geez, that's about the right timing it would take for them to fly from here
No,
to there.
no, plausible deniability. Number 1, Putin doesn't own a cell phone. Number 2, he doesn't use the internet. So the communications.
You don't think he doesn't have military intelligence telling him, feeding him info?
Hey, I mean, the fact of the matter is he can say it all he wants, but he can't prove it. Better still, if you do it in the right amount of time, right? You play the shell game. So, how many B2s do we have active? Estimate.
I think there's like 20 of them.
Okay. 10 of them could have done this job twice as hard as it needed to, right? Shock and awe. So you send 10 over there. You fly all 20 out, but you send 10 out only. The other 10 come back and land. Then they take off a second time. Then they land. Then take off a third time. And now he's confused, right? Then that shit that shit just happens. And then the 10 land and take off and land and take off. And they lose count. Because there's no tail numbers. Because there's no tail. Listen, if I can think of that, somebody in fucking Washington should have thought of that. That's all I'm saying. This could have been over.
Yeah. And there's a problem with your idea.
They can tell it's U.S. ordnance.
Yes.
That's what Squib's
That's a
saying.
possibility. It's also a possibility that the idiot in the White House is exactly that, an idiot.
He had no idea. No one ever told him.
I'm guarantee you he probably would never authorize anything like that to begin with.
Okay. I think
If he
Squib's
gets caught,
answers
now we're at war with Russia.
Squib's answer's satisfactory to me. So a B-2 takes off with bombs from North Korea. I'm just saying.
guarantee they fit in the bomb racks.
Well,
Also, where do you get the bombs from North Korea from?
fine. Canadian ones. Fucking
Takes time.
Nicaraguan bomb. I don't care. Just paint a hammer and sickle on the American ones.
logistics of it.
I don't know. Look, it could have
Could be a
happened.
nightmare.
We could have done something. Even if it was
we
like,
absolutely could have done something.
even if one B2 dropped 100-pound like thermite bombs or something, or if it okay, better yet, I'll even do you one better. Stealth bomber flies over B2, a flight of 10 of them, and they drop nothing but tear gas canisters. Like 1,000,000 of them. Right? That's going to demoralize those people and make them abandon all their hardware. And then the Ukrainians just walk on in and blow it all up with explosives and walk right off. I don't know. It's just, I had a theory about that. I'm like, covert ops, right? What's more covert than a stealth bomber?
But the problem with it is that stealth isn't as stealthy as you think.
Well, yes.
The B-2 is very stealthy, but it still has a fairly large radar cross section.
Sure, but will they know what it is at 40,000 feet?
Possibly.
And you know what? I mean, like I said, this is a covert op, right? So,
Right.
at the same time, air traffic control just happens to be kind of fucked up. And as soon as you get this B-2 group flying overhead, a couple of commercial aircraft around the same altitude are flying somewhere within the vicinity. So they're like, we don't know what's going on. No, I can't give up the convoy thing. Besides, it can't happen anymore anyway, because there is no convoy. But we'll get to that later, as you'll soon find out. All right, anyway, I just wanted to do that little tangent because I was thinking about it for a few days. But, all right, so let's go on to the next story. It's 2:30. It's 10:30 over UK or Ukrainian local time now. And I have a tweet from the IAEA and this guy here. So his name is Rafael Mariano Grassi, and he's the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. He tweeted Thursday morning that he was headed to Turkey to discuss the urgent issue of ensuring the safety and security of Ukraine's nuclear facilities, as it says there. During a diplomacy forum near Antalya, Turkey, Russia has attacked nuclear power plants in Ukraine, and during the invasion, and the country reported power cuts to the critical cooling system at Chernobyl on Wednesday. So, yesterday, at the time of the show, there was 38 hours of fuel left in the diesel generators. So, by now, that would be 14 hours left, roughly. And then once the power runs out, the coolant pump shut off. Once the coolant pump shut off, well, you saw the picture yesterday. It's a possibility, right? It's 20,000 spent fuel rods that are still radioactive, so they have to be cooled. And if they don't, what happens? Meltdown. Anyway, I think Scott was telling me just before I had left the office that somebody had greenlit that IAEA techs can come in and fix things, so that doesn't happen. I didn't see any updates in any of my feeds to corroborate that, but cross your fingers. We'll see. All right, let's move on. And at about 11:32 Ukrainian time, this happened. Right? Is that it? Turkey tweet. Yeah. Russia's and Ukraine's foreign ministers Sergei Lapdog and Dmytro Kuleba will meet in Turkey Thursday, today, for negotiations during a diplomacy forum in country. Now remember, I'm doing you the news through the day, so it started off here, and then it, progressed throughout the day. So at this time of the day, they announced that this was going to happen. It'll be the first high-level meeting between Moscow and Kyiv since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut, I have actually wrote this down. It's Mevlut Savusoglu. Even though it looks like a C, it's kind of pronounced with an S, so it's Savusoglu. Savusoglu, I think that's what it is. Said that he will be in the meeting in the Mediterranean resort city of Antalya. Our main goal is to bring the three leaders together, Turkey's Hurriyet newspaper quoted Savusoglu as saying, in reference to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Russia's foreign ministry tweeted a photo Thursday morning of the lapdog meeting with Savusoglu. That guy. If you're wondering why I'm calling him lapdog, because he's a bitch, so... Especially if you've been hearing what he's been saying lately to the UN, so, yeah. He's a bitch. Moving right along. Patrick is saying that the B-2 radar cross-section is about the size of one swallow. It's a pretty good date. Anyway.
I don't know. I'm out of breath.
Lunchtime, 12:34. Ukrainian President Zelensky condemned a Russian attack on a maternity and children's hospital in the besieged city of Mariupol, Ukraine, Wednesday as, quote, proof of genocide. An aerial bomb on a maternity hospital is the conclusive evidence that that what is happening is a genocide of Ukrainians. He said this in a nightly video address. He does these every night around dusk because, actually, I think he does it an hour after dusk, so that way people can get inside before the curfew, and then, he can address the people. The airstrike on the hospital left 3 people dead, including one of the children. I think it was an ICU baby or something, because it buried it. And there was more than a dozen injured. There are a few things more depraved than targeting the vulnerable and the defenseless, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson had tweeted. He said that the country is exploring more support for Ukraine to defend against airstrikes, and we will hold Putin to account for his terrible crimes. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke to his Ukrainian counterpart, Dmytro Kuleba, Wednesday about additional security and humanitarian assistance to the U.S., about additional security and humanitarian assistance the U.S. could provide Ukraine in the face of Russia's unconscionable attacks harming population centers. So yeah, there was the hospital bombing that we talked about yesterday. I'm not sure if it showed up in the slideshow, but there's a video, or there's a picture of a guy who's standing in a crater that's about 20 feet deep and about 30 feet across. And I'm just like, Jesus, that must have been one hell of a bomb. All right, so let's move on. We're actually making pretty good time. This one is the actual meeting in Turkey right here. And it says, Dmytro Kuleba, Ukraine's foreign minister, said that his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lapdog, wasn't in a position to commit to a humanitarian corridor out of the besieged city of Mariupol, and no progress was made on a ceasefire during the meeting. Kuleba was speaking in English to reporters in a press conference at Antalya, Turkey, amid a diplomacy forum. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Savus, damn it, I forgot how to say his name again already. It is Savusoglu, was also in the meeting with Lavrov. Kuleba said that he and Lavrov agreed to continue efforts to seek a humanitarian solution and said he would be willing to meet again. He added that foreign ministers have a mandate to discuss peace and security. I'm ready to continue this engagement to end the war in Ukraine, stopping the suffering of Ukrainian citizens, stopping the Russian occupying force, he's added. Lapdog, after the meeting, continued to deny the Russians had invaded the country. Now, I've got two comments about this. One, nothing ever gets done. This is the fifth meeting. They're never accomplishing anything because the Russians come in and they're like, look, you're giving us all this land, you're standing down, and you're disarming your military. And then the no, you see, I gotta disagree with you because they're killing civilians, and they're just wiping them out wholesale, and they've attacked 18 hospitals. That's a conscious decision. It's a shitty conscious decision. I can't agree with that. Anyway, the point is nothing ever gets done at these meetings ever. And I'm starting to think that they just keep agreeing to them because the lunch is really good. And I know that sounds petty and peevish and stupid, but it's like the Russians coming in not making any concessions, and the Ukrainians coming in knowing that they're not making any concessions. But they keep agreeing to come back because obviously the hooch is good and the lunch is great, and then they turn around and they leave. That's all I can think of. The other thing is, who did that short notice work of the banners and the tablecloths and everything? Because that was quick. I mean, they only had 24 hours notice to get all that put up, made and put up. Just a thought. All right, let's move along. It is now 12:56 Ukrainian local time, so it's after lunch. And this was the picture I was talking about. Now, I didn't color knee pads this time. Vice President Kamala Harris and Polish President Andrzej Duda insisted Thursday that the United States and Poland are unified after the U.S. rejected the country's proposal to send MiG-29 planes to the Ukrainian military. During a joint press conference in Warsaw, Poland, just hours after the Pentagon made clear that the U.S. does not support Poland's proposal for the U.S. and NATO to deliver MiG-29s to the Ukrainian military, Harris and Duda maintained that the relationship between the United States and Poland has become even stronger amid Russia's war against Ukraine. Harris said her visit to Poland is, quote, an expression of the enduring and important relationship between the United States and Poland that again has been long-standing, but in particular on the issue of Ukraine, it's unified and it's still clear. We will do everything together in partnership and solidarity to support what is necessary at this very moment in terms of the humanity and security needs of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. Then she followed up with, I want to be very clear. The United States and Poland are united in what we have done and are prepared to do to help Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. Full stop. Now, bear in mind, she was supposed to go to this thing to take a victory lap about negotiating the transfer of the planes. DOD slapped it down just before she was going to take this trip. And then she still had to go. So her speechwriters just basically gave her a handful of index cards of just talking head nonsense and filler. And she made a complete fool out of herself, especially during the Q&A session, which we talked about at the beginning of the intro. She was asked a question about is the United States ready and willing to take on refugees? And she looked over at the Polish president, and she said something like the what was it? The nations that stay together play together, or something like that, or whatever. It was so stupid. And then she started making this cackling laugh that she always does, with her hand on her, I guess, imaginary baby bump that she wished she could have. And the president just, you could see him in the corner of the video. His whole arm is sticking out off screen. And he's like doing this gesture like, oh God, just shut up. You know, it's like, we need to take this seriously, right? Anyway, let's get her off the screen. Diplomatic disaster is what that was. Everyone's just saying the they're just saying whatever's generic in public, but you know damn well that the relations are strained. They have to be. Now we have an argument in chat about genocide. I don't care one way or another. You still don't attack 18 hospitals. They're not military targets. And then Putin had the audacity to say that that particular uh, what do you call it? Uh, I forgot the name of it. But anyway, it's like it's a hospital where you give birth. So I mean, it's like he said that was a military target. And I'm just sitting there going, wait a minute. Are you going to try to use this weak-ass justification that it's a military target because it's growing the future infantry that might stop you? By the time they grow up, you'll be dead. Anyway, doesn't matter. Moving on. Actually making really good time. I'm kind of glad.
All people in that car, military target.
I don't know. He said that the pediatric hospital was a military target, and I don't buy it. We've been joined by the finest of apes. All right, so 1:37 p.m. So this happened about half an hour later, and I got a picture for you here. Here, there you go. That's the hospital. What's left of it. And she's actually standing in front of the crater, because if I'm not mistaken, just to the left of that's where the hole is. British Armed Forces Minister James Heappey said Thursday that Russia's airstrike yesterday on a maternity and children's hospital in Mariupol was a war crime. Heappey said regardless whether it was indiscriminate fire into a built-up area or deliberate targeting is still considered a war crime. Now, if it was one hospital in 14 days with a dumbfire munition, not a guided one, you might be able to pull that off. If NATO and the UN say that was the 18th hospital, they're targeting them. And then if you have people on the ground who actually helps clear rubble saying actually that was the 29th hospital in 14 days, they're absolutely targeting these people. They're trying to demoralize the people through shock tactics, clearly, into like a quick submission and quick surrender. Like, what is more frightening than deliberately attacking women, children, and the elderly, and the sick, and the downtrodden, and the people who can't move? It's like, you're attacking defenseless people. You're trying to break them. Anyway.
And that's only going to make them fight harder.
Well, no, yes. Yes. Okay.
It's going to backfire.
No, I'll go with that. I'll totally go with that. They'll just dig their heels in further.
Yep.
You're right. See, my concern is when it comes to Kyiv, there's 3 or 4 major bridges on the west side of town. The west side of town is where on the west side of the river, and on the west side of town is where it's like the business district, right? And they can fall back, and there's government buildings, and then on the other side of the river, it's just businesses and I guess residential, and maybe a little bit of industry. But the bridges are long and wide across a very wide river. So, I don't know, man. It's like, it just looks like a situation where they'll fight in the outer rings and slowly have like a fighting retreat. And then when they get to the bridges, they'll blow the bridges. And then every time the Russians try to engineer a temporary bridge to come across the river, they'll just get mortared and freaking, what's the word I'm looking for? Shoot.
Artillery.
Well, they'll get mortar, they'll get artillery, they'll get God damn, I forgot the name of that thing. Javelin, just to death until they try to figure out a different way to cross. Or worst case scenario is they can't, and then Putin gets pissed off and he starts using small scale nukes because that seems to be what everyone's worried about right now. Well, I guess we'll know in about a week, right? Okay, let's move on. So now it's about a minute later. Yeah, about a minute later, oh, I got a picture for you. Sorry. Here you go. Ukrainian officials are preparing to mount a pressure campaign aimed at the New York Stock Exchange, designed to isolate companies that do business in Russia and therefore are inclined to pay taxes to finance the Kremlin's government, taxes that fund the war against Ukraine. This is definitely not the time to pay any taxes to the Russian government. This came from Marianne Zablotsky, member of Ukraine's parliament. A member of Ukraine's parliament's finance committee who is spearheading this effort. These taxes finance guns, ammo, and salaries of soldiers who kill Ukrainians. 52 were killed by the invading forces so far. On behalf of the Ukrainian government, we will be asking stock exchanges to delist any company which continues to pay taxes in rubles and investment funds to drop these stocks. We also have asked Congress, on behalf of the Ukrainian Parliament's Finance Committee, to consider banning the trade shares of any company that pay taxes in rubles. Our people will be staging protests outside of the New York Stock Exchange demanding it delist companies that pay taxes to the Russian government. So, in short, what she's doing is she's just basically saying, look, can you just not pay your taxes if it's going to the Russians? That would be great. And I think that makes sense. Just default on your tax payments. What's the Russians going to do? Seize your assets? I think that makes sense. And then she wants the stock exchanges to delist anything that has ties to Russia, which also sort of makes sense. I think they'll probably get what they're asking for here. It's not like flying MiGs over into Ukraine, right? It's more like just cutting off the piggy bank even further. It's legit. We'll see. I guess we'll know by tomorrow if they do it or not, because it'll be a Friday morning protest. And as if the market wasn't already in the toilet, it'll just get worse. All right. 3:39 p.m. Ukrainian time. So it's getting later on in the day. For me, it's only 7:30 in the morning. Like, I'm dealing with the fox hunt and all its stupid dogs barking in the morning. Here's Kuleba's tweet. Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba tweeted Thursday that he has met with the head of the IAEA in Turkey to discuss ways of ensuring safety and security of nuclear facilities in Ukraine amidst Russia's invasion. I insist Russia must immediately withdraw forces from Chernobyl and Zaporizhzhia's nuclear power plants to avert a disaster in Europe. That's his tweet there. The only question I have is, do you really think they're going to comply? I don't think so. I really don't think they're going to comply. I think they took those over as strategic targets to hold the country's ransom, because the night that the power plant in Zaporizhzhia was taken over, the first thing that people who worked there said was going on was they were planting explosives near the reactors. So, of course, if things don't go your way, what are you going to do? Blow the reactors. So they're not going to give them up. They might not even let the IAEA into that plant. They do have a ticking time bomb in Chernobyl, and I think if Scott's source was right, they will probably let the IAEA there, because it's already a ruin, you know. So it's like, it's not going to help them. But the other one, that's a ransom tactic. And that third plant, I can't remember where it was at. It's on the map here somewhere. The third map was... Oh, no, this one doesn't have them. Sorry. There's 3. And they probably got that one rigged too by now. All right, so moving right along. About 45 minutes... No, almost an hour, actually. A little over an hour. 4:45 p.m. This is a good one. And this is just generic... oil companies here, just to give you an idea how many companies with gas and oil and manufacturing are pulling out. The list is huge, but this one was part of the story that I sourced with. Tanker owners are starting to avoid transporting Russian oil and gas over concerns that their vessels will be stopped mid-shipment, leading to costly delays, according to the Wall Street Journal. Those in the industry tell the newspaper that at least a dozen tankers moving Russian crude have either been temporarily seized or forcibly delayed at at European ports by customs officials over the last week. They'll hold your ship to see if it has any connection with blacklisted Russian companies, one tanker owner based in Greece told the Wall Street Journal. It's not worth it because of the complexity, we'll just stay away from Russia. They just don't want that smoke. They don't want to have to deal with it. So that came from Lars Barstad, the chief executive of tanker owner Frontline Management. There's a lot of money to be made, and it's still legal, but very difficult to do in a good manner. So we've banned Russian oil. Shell got their shit pushed in when they bought a tanker full of it at a $29 a barrel discount. The news of that went far and wide across the internet very quickly, and the backlash ended up making them renege on the deal. Now the owners of the tankers, or at least the lessees of the tankers, they're instructing the captains, no, don't go there. Like, we don't want to lose millions in, customs tie-ups and things. So they now even if Russia has people to buy their oil, they have no way of transporting it by ship because nobody wants to touch it. So now they're forced to, I guess, domestic rail, and trucking, or pipelines. And the only buyer that's expressed any interest that could actually pay them is the Chinese. And that's a long trip. Now, I don't think the Mongolians particularly like the Russians or the Chinese, so that trip is not a safe one either. Just a thought. Let's move on. You guys are really quiet today, by the way. Okay, so 8:46. So this was only a minute later, but I'm taking you a little further west. It's now 3:46 p.m. in Gay Paris, and it's a quarter till curfew in the Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz have called Thursday for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine in a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. A statement from the French presidency said that any solution to the crisis must be negotiated between Russia and Ukraine. The three leaders agreed to stay in close contact in the coming days. But do you honestly think anything's going to come of it? Russia's invasion of the Ukraine is the main issue at the summit of European Union heads of states and government at the Versailles Palace in France Thursday and Friday. So they started today and it will finish tomorrow. Now, how effective do you think that is? So you got a conference call. You got the president of France and the Grand Chancellor of Germany, and they're calling Vladimir Putin in the Duma, I can assume, or in the Urals, wherever he is, right? And it's like, Vladi, we have a phone call, and it's like, okay, who is it? And he's like, they say it's the French president and the German Chancellor, and so he's like, okay, and he takes the call, right? So he's got a translator. And they're talking between translators. And like the whole time I'm thinking Putin's just hearing wah 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 wah. It's like he's just letting them, windbag what they want to say, and then he just simply says, yeah, okay, I'll call you later. Because he's not listening to anybody. Clearly, he's not listening to nobody. So it's like, what the hell was the point of calling him? I think this phrase is diplomacy has failed. Either way, I just think it was a wasted effort. But they keep saying, because it's a PR game, oh no, we'll stay in close contact. You can call me all you want, and I'll just, tune out every time I hear your voice going wah 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 wah. Anyway, all right, so a couple minutes later, again, and this actually, Scott provided this one. You might recognize that photo, Scott. A former Canadian soldier, known as one of the world's deadliest snipers, arrived in Ukraine to help the nation defend itself from Russia. He was quoted as saying, "I want to help them. It's as simple as that." The Canadian man, only identified as Wally to protect his family's safety, told the CBC, "I have to help because there are people here being bombarded just because they want to be European and not Russian." Wally is a former sniper with the Royal Canadian 22nd Regiment who previously fought in Afghanistan. He has a kill distance of over 2 miles and is known as one of the most deadly snipers in the world. Sorry, I had a Clarkson moment there. He crossed into Ukraine on the 1st of March along with 3 other former Canadian soldiers after Ukraine Vladimir Zelensky called on foreigners to join the war against Russia's invasion. Do you want to guess which border he walked in from?
Poland?
That's the only place I can imagine. Man, like, was there a soundtrack when him and his 3 other fellow badasses just like strutted in? Like there must have been, like it must have been like a fucking 80s action movie commercial. Giant explosion in the background.
Well, there's literally a group of ex-Western special forces guys that are there now.
Yeah, well,
Take your
they're
pick of
volunteers, right?
elite. Well, take your pick of elite military unit, and they are there
Well, there's
as volunteers.
when I get to the video segment, there's gonna be something in it that I just want to bring to your attention, but you're gonna hear this more and more throughout the coming days. And it's gonna be, listen, every day Putin tells you a new thing not to do that's gonna escalate, right? And eventually he's gonna get to, if I find out what country these volunteers are coming from, that's gonna escalate. You know, it's like he's just everything. It's like I can't remember. Was it Aqua Teen Hunger Force? Yeah, it was an episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and every time like Carl or any of the guys fucking ran into a mummy, it was like curse, curse. Like every time he ran into it, right? And it's just like every time I think of Putin just going, "That's escalation. That's escalation." I think he's the mummy in that stupid episode. And the question's going to come up from Tom Cotton about that, and it's going to just silence the room. Like, that dude was freaking on it today. So anyway, like, I want to get through these quickly to show it to you, because it's pretty awesome. So now it's 10:56. It is 6:56. We are 2 hours into the curfew. There was 2 interviews with the Klitschko brothers. Somewhere in between that, they were sitting together and they were talking about how they'll fight to the end, and if they die, at least they'll be proud that they fought for their country and all this other good stuff. Then they talk about how they need help and assistance in like medical and ammunition and everything. So like these are the typical things. Somewhere throughout the day, also the cut man and head trainer for Alexander Usyk, who is the current heavyweight champion in 3 divisions, or sorry, in is it divisions? No, in 3 sanctioning bodies. He has 3 out of the 4 belts. They announced that he's probably not going to box for the rest of the year because he's too busy fighting for his country. I think that's a reasonable thing. And if you know how boxing sanctioning works, none of them are going to strip him of his title. They wouldn't dare. It'd be a political and PR disaster. So what they'll probably do is they'll just suspend his championship status temporarily, and then they'll have what's called an interim fight between rank 2 and 3, or rank 2 and whoever's willing to fight rank 2. Sometimes it's not always just 2 and 3. And then whoever wins that fight will be called interim champion, and he'll get to carry a belt similar to the regular champion. And then if this all resolves itself, then Usyk can go back, fight that guy, and then that winner of that is now champion again. So, just a little background. But anyway, these athletes are fighting for their country. And if you didn't know, one of the first athlete casualties of Ukraine was a few days ago. And it was, I think he was only 19. He was pretty young. But it was the cross-country skier from the Olympic team. And he came back and he fought for his country and he died. So, the pieces, like those pieces, are starting to fall too. Because I mean, they're still human at the end of the day, and a cross-country skier doesn't really have combat experience, especially if he's only like 19. So it's unfortunate. But I think if like one of the Klitschko's go down, man, that's going to be mega on like the world stage. People are going to be pissed. All right, so let's move on. Man, that was a lot. Actually, I need another one of my drops while I'm at it too. So the next picture I have for you is this one. Just, you know, picture a town. Someone's riding a bike through the ruins of what used to be his city. And it says Ukrainian economic advisor Oleg Ushchenko said Thursday that the Russian military is estimated to have destroyed at least $100 billion. Wait, sorry, $100 billion worth of infrastructure, buildings, and other assets in Ukraine. I'm not doing the liquid hot magma thing. Ushchenko, reportedly added that the ongoing Russian invasion has forced half of Ukraine's businesses to shut down, while the others are operating well below capacity. So I guess they're thinking of like just net loss, not just physical damage. So buildings destroyed, assets destroyed, workforce diminished, supply obviously greatly diminished, GDP, you know, that kind of thing. $100 billion in 15 days. It's pretty staggering. Then again, it's the whole country's under siege, so I guess it's not really that unreasonable. I mean, it's like, I guess the best way to describe it is the Ukraine is geographically about the size of Texas, right? Imagine a hurricane that was big enough and powerful enough to more or less devastate the entire state of Texas. Like a storm that came in through the Gulf of Mexico into my area of Galveston and Houston. I would be ground zero, so there would be not much left here. But it was also big enough and strong enough and wide enough that it would take out Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Austin, Victoria, Corpus Christi, Fort Stockton, and the outer bands are beating the absolute hell out of El Paso. 100 billion's probably a low estimate then. Like that figure would be actually low. But of course, we have a lot more industry and other things here that are very valuable. But it's just to give you an idea of scale. So anyway, moving right along. That poor destroyed city. Now, I have a question with this next story. That's why I'm going to post it. And I really wish Warsaw was here because he might be able to answer it. Because I don't know anything about it. This is the first time I ever heard of it. So forgive my ignorance. Here's the picture. And it says, if you look at the legend of that, it says areas under Russian control. And you can see Russia, and you can see the two contested areas, the Donbass region, and I forgot what the other one was called, but it's there. And then Crimea. And then if you look next to Lithuania, between Poland and Lithuania, there's a spot there that's the same color. And then there's like a line called the Suwalki Gap. What is that? And how did they get it? Because now I know why Poland would kick 7 levels of hell out of Russia if they actually get militarily involved. Because the first thing they're going to want is that back and that other piece just above it. They'll be like, no, GTFO, this is ours now, right? And I think they would be well within their rights to take it. But if anybody knows what the Suwalki Gap is, before I go do the Googles, and can just paraphrase it in the chat, by all means, let me know, because I'll read it out. I just find that very strange. Anyway, the reason I posted that is Russian state media is reporting Friday that Vladimir Putin and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko will meet Friday in Moscow. Okay, I just want to stop right there for a second. There is a moment in history right now. This is the moment that's like Operation Valkyrie. If you think about it, you know where two leaders are going to meet and you know what day they're going to do it. And you also know that there's a lot of things that can only be done in a covert op. I'm just saying. Wink, nudge.
Well,
Here's a spare magazine.
there's also a good opportunity for a general in Belarus to move up in the world.
After his, yeah, okay. I see where you're going with that. All I'm saying is Valkyrie, make it happen right now, tomorrow, over there, Moscow. Belarus, which borders Ukraine to its north, held joint military exercises with Russia in the days leading up to its invasion of Ukraine and has acted as a springboard for the attacks. Also, now this is a really weird statistic. Out of the 2,316,002 people estimated by the UN Thursday today, that's the new figure if you were wondering, only 765 are estimated to be taking refuge in Belarus, compared to the nearly 1.5 million in Poland. Oh, the finest of apes sent me something. Maybe he answered that question for me. Let me take a look. Sorry, we're doing it live. Oh, I'm going to enjoy watching that. Thank you so much. I will give that the time it deserves after the show. I appreciate that. You've been really good. You're 2 for 2 now. So anyway, there's a meeting in Moscow. Somebody go often. Here's a suitcase. Just make sure it doesn't have a very thick oak table leg that you put it next to. Otherwise, history will repeat itself. And von Stauffenberg will die again. Please, I hope all you know what the hell I'm talking about with Valkyrie. If you don't, look it up. Alright, so, moving right along. Here you go. Thought that was a nice picture, that's why I used it. So this is the updated statistics. 7 p.m. Ukrainian time. This is when, the UN put out this new statistic. Estimated 2.3 million. It's actually 2,316,002, but they just did this, they rounded down. Have fled Ukraine since, as of Thursday, including 1 million children, according to UNICEF. Most have fled to neighboring countries Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Moldova, and Romania. Nearly 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees are in Poland. This came from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees reported Thursday. The number of children on the move is staggering, an indication of how desperate the situation for children and families in Ukraine has become. This also came from Afshan Khan, who is UNICEF's regional director for both Europe and Asia. Children are leaving everything they know behind in search of safety, and this is really heartbreaking, of course. Won't somebody think of the children? The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, that's that acronym that doesn't make any sense, estimates that a total of 41 Ukrainian children have been killed since February 24th, when Russia invaded, but Ukraine's Commissioner for Human Rights, Verkhova Rada, is saying that a higher number of children has been killed, 71, and more than 100 have been injured as of Thursday. UNICEF will be delivering medical supplies to 22 hospitals in 5 different war zones to benefit 20,000 children and mothers. I just chose that picture because I liked it. Alright, so, moving right along. About roughly 10 minutes later, got another little thing here, and here's the picture. I swear that the picture I chose for this part of the story, that looks like a scene out of The Walking Dead, like the earlier seasons. I don't know if it was the filter that guy used, but good job. I know it's not The Walking Dead because you can see all the shrapnel hits on the front of that house. It got peppered. That might have been they said that's a destroyed tank, so maybe the other side's blown out and that's what actually hit the house. Anyway, more than 2 weeks have passed since Russia began its invasion of Ukraine, as Kremlin forces pushed ahead in their efforts to advance toward the capital city of Kyiv. The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said Thursday that 1,506 civilian casualties have been reported in Ukraine since February 24th. The office also recorded 549 people killed in Ukraine and 957 hurt. Wait, now how does that work? Oh, wait. Okay, so I forgot. Saying casualties doesn't mean you're dead. That's what it is. My mistake. I just got confused for a second. Those numbers are always low, by the way, because a lot of times what ends up happening is the people in the area bury their dead in, at least in the last 2 days, there's a lot of stories about the people burying their dead in mass graves while they have the chance, because number one, there's not enough time to do individual services. Number two, they got to get the bodies in the ground before disease and flies and, you know, everything like that sets in, or other Russians come and set in. So a lot of these numbers are skewed just because they can't account for the guys that got quickly buried so they can move on. Okay, now I think the reference that New York Outcast is making is to one of Squib's videos, so that very clever, sir. Well done. Let's move on. Man, we're getting close to that video, so it's the one after this particular thing I'm about to show you. So, oh, maybe I don't have. Okay, I don't have a picture for this particular one, but this was like money market news. This was getting kind of interesting. So, at noon, basically high noon, in my area, so it was already 1 o'clock at the New York Stock Exchange. Goldman Sachs has become the first Wall Street firm to suspend all of its operations in Russia following the country's invasion. Goldman Sachs is winding down its business in Russia in compliance with regulatory and licensing requirements. We're focused on supporting our clients across the globe in managing or closing out pre-existing obligations in the market and ensuring the well-being of our people. That's just corpo speak for we're getting the hell out of Dodge. As of December 2021, Goldman Sachs' total credit exposure in Russia was about $650 million, and its total market exposure was $414 million. That was according to the recent 10-K filing. Meanwhile, its market exposure in Ukraine was $236 million as of December 2021, while its credit exposure in the country was, quote, not material. A spokesperson for JP Morgan Chase said that it had been actively unwinding Russian businesses and have not been pursuing any new business in Russia. That is also in compliance with the directives by governments around the world. Current activities are limited, including helping global clients address the closeout and pre-existing obligations, managing their Russia-calculated risk, acting as a custodian towards our clients, and taking care of our employees. Russia is not listed among JP Morgan's top 20 exposures outside of the United States, according to its most recent annual filing. The firm previously announced a commitment of up to $5 million in support of humanitarian relief efforts, including an employee contribution match. So they're going to cut a check for $5 million, and then if anybody who works for them cuts a check, they will match that as well. Pretty solid, right? The commitment supports organizations providing emergency food, housing, and medical services to those in need. Citigroup, so like it was like one after another. They were just announcing because like the first guy did it and everyone jumped in. Citigroup disclosed plans last year to pursue exits from its consumer franchises in 13 markets, including Russia. Now, that sounds like to me they were getting out because it wasn't profitable, but it's still a gesture, right? The bank had approximately $9.8 billion in exposure to Russia as at the end of 2021, according to their recent filing. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink said in a LinkedIn post last week that the company had suspended the purchase of all Russian securities in its active and index funds and has proactively advocated with its index providers to remove Russian securities from broad-based indices. He noted that Russian securities account for less than 1/100% of BlackRock clients' assets, with the majority in index portfolios. So basically, it was a mass exodus. Goldman Sachs said, "We're getting out," and everyone's like, "Me too." But hey, that's a step in the right direction. So we'll take it. That and y'all just don't want this smoke, obviously. Just look at Shell. Okay, 2:12 p.m. my time. I had lunch early today, so I can't say the lunch thing. I actually had lunch at like 12:30 today. And it says UK evening tweet. So that would be this one. This was an update from the UK Defense Ministry. And it says, due to strong Ukrainian resistance, Russian forces are committing an increased number of their deployed forces to encircle key cities. This will reduce the number of forces available to continue their advance and will further slow Russian progress. Point number 2 was protests against Russian occupation have been reported throughout the week in the Russian-held cities of Kherson, Melitopol, I don't think they spelled that one right, and Berdansk. 400 protesters were allegedly detained by Russian forces in the Kherson Oblast yesterday. So there's obviously anti-war protests in country as well as in Russia. Surprise, surprise. Moving right along. We're actually doing really good. Okay, so this is the part that I was talking about earlier. So, you two panelists, go ahead and mute your mics and then click the links I sent you. So that way you're in on the YouTube side so you can see this, because you're definitely going to want to see this. So while they prepare to do that, I'll wait to see the little mute icons on your, yep. And then I'll just give them a few minutes to go ahead and get loaded up so they can see the video. Just to be on the safe side. Cool, they're both in there. Okay, so today there was a Senate Intelligence Committee meeting, and Tom Cotton and John Cornyn, and there was one other senator, they laid into them today, especially after the weekend debacle with the MiG trades or transfers. So I'm going to pop up this screen here, and this video is roughly 10 minutes long, but I promise you this will be worth your time. So let's get that going. Where's my play button? Come on. There it is.
Senator Cotton, thank you as well also for your constant willingness to press this committee and, frankly, the IC leadership to make sure, both on the unclassified and classified section, the collaboration between the DoD projects and the IC projects. Senator Cotton.
Thank you. Director Haynes, I want to address the administration's fiasco of failing to help Poland transfer its aircraft to Ukraine. The Pentagon spokesman yesterday cited your intelligence community. Quote, the intelligence community has assessed the transfer of MiG-29s to Ukraine may be mistaken as escalatory and could result in significant Russian reaction that might increase the prospects of a military escalation with NATO. The State Department spokesman said essentially the same thing earlier today. Since administration policymakers are justifying their hesitancy to help Poland transfer these aircraft by pointing to your intelligence community, could you tell us what is the basis for this alleged assessment that the transfer of these aircraft would be viewed as escalatory?
Thank you, Senator Cotton. So it is our analysts' assessment that the transfer of these airplanes could be perceived as a significant escalation by the Russians. It is, they are obviously an advanced and considerable weapon.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
so
please.
I appreciate your analysts and their deep expertise and knowledge about this.
Absolutely.
I'm asking what specific evidence, information, intelligence do they have that the transfer of these aircrafts, as opposed to anti-aircraft missiles that shoot Russian jets out of the sky, is going to be viewed as escalatory?
Why don't I provide to you a written product that will give you the basis for that?
So the Pentagon spokesman also said that this is the same intelligence that they had last year that delayed the transfer of many of those missiles as well, that there's no new intelligence. He said it was the same intelligence he's had last year. Is that the case?
No, Senator, I'm not aware of what it is that he was referencing, but this is a recent assessment that was done by the intelligence community. I'm very happy to provide that to you.
Assessments. I'm saying, do you have new intelligence?
I want the truth.
So when analysts, I mean, I know you know this, but obviously they're looking at a body of intelligence, and then they're also providing their own knowledge and experience, and I don't know whether or not there is.
So we can address this in a closed setting, but here's my opinion. You don't have new intelligence. This is opinion.
I don't think
and
she
in
has
many
any
cases,
intelligence.
this is policymakers who are looking to the intelligence community to provide them cover for their hesitancy. General Barrier, could you explain as an intelligence officer how Vladimir Putin might be A-OK with us transferring missiles that turn their tanks into burning piles of rubbish or shoot their jets out of the sky, yet transferring tactical aircraft is going to be unacceptable? Why is the latter escalatory and the former not escalatory?
Yeah.
Senator Cotton, thank you. I will take a stab at that in open session here. I think when you look at anti-tank weapons and air defense, shoulder-fired kinds of weapons, there is a range of escalation. And I think in our view, that escalation ladder doesn't get checked higher with those weapons versus something like combat aircraft.
I got to say, I don't think there's a lot of common sense between this distinction, and a lot
There's
of farmers
none.
in Arkansas wouldn't understand it either. I mean, your own written assessment, Ms. Haynes, says that Russia, quote, doesn't want a direct conflict with the United States, end quote. That was from January 21st, that assessment said Russia doesn't want a conflict with the United States. Do you think they're more likely to want a conflict now after Vladimir Putin has seen the performance of his army? Not just against the Ukrainian army, but with moms with Molotov cocktails and grandmas with AK-47s. Do you think they're more likely to want a piece of us now than they were 2 months ago?
I don't think it's an issue of whether or not they're more likely to want a conflict. It's whether or not they perceive us as being in that conflict with them. I think we're in a very challenging position, right, where we are obviously providing enormous amounts of support to the Ukrainians, as we should and need to do, but at the same time trying not to escalate the conflict into a full-on NATO or U.S. war with Russia. And that's a challenging space to manage. And the analysts, I think, are just trying to provide their best assessment of what is likely to be perceived as that kind of escalation in this circumstance.
Well, I mean, I've got to say, it seems to me that Vladimir Putin simply deterred the U.S. government from providing these aircraft by saying they would view this as escalatory. And if that's going to be our position, I mean, we might as well call the commanding general at Fort Lewis outside Seattle and tell him to take the flag down and surrender our position. Because he's not going to stop in Ukraine, he's not going to stop in Europe, he's going to go all the way to the West Coast. And every time he raises a threat, we immediately back off. One other question I want to ask in this area as well about intelligence sharing. Last Thursday, the House Armed Services Committee Chairman Adam Smith said, quote, "We are providing some intelligence, we're not providing the kind of real-time targeting because that, you know, steps over the line that makes us participate in the war," end quote. Just a few hours later, the White House press secretary contradicted him, saying, "We have consistently been sharing intelligence that includes information the Ukrainians can use to inform and develop their military response to Russia's invasion. That has been ongoing, and reports that suggest otherwise are inaccurate." So who is correct? The Democratic chairman of the House Armed Services Committee or the White House press secretary? Are we or are we not providing that kind of real-time targeting intelligence to Ukraine?
We are providing an enormous amount of intelligence to Ukraine. I'd be happy to get into, in closed sessions, the details of what we're providing, and I think maybe if there's anything else.
That's corpo
Can you at
speak.
least
I
tell
don't
me
want to
who
be
is correct
held out
between
or
the
wrung
chairman
out to
of the
dry
House Armed Services Committee and the White House press
in
secretary?
public.
Honestly, Senator, I think getting into this in closed session would be easier so that
trying
we
to
can
cover my
actually
ass.
explain to you what it is that we're providing. But I'm happy to defer to my colleagues who may have additional.
I'm sure we'll address it in closed session.
Thank you, Senator Cotton.
Senator Burr raised an excellent point. It's a second arbitrary distinction about these Polish MiGs. Apparently, the U.S. government position was they go from Poland, okie dokie, that's A-OK. They go from the United States, nope, Vladimir Putin views that as escalatory. I still don't think there's any intelligence to justify that distinction. I want to return, General Barrett, to what you said, Senator Sass. You said that you believe that there is a difference in escalation between anti-tank missiles and anti-aircraft missiles on the one hand and aircraft on the other hand. I understand you believe that. I understand that Director Haynes believes that, and she claims that the analysts believe that. I don't believe it.
Nobody does.
I don't believe it, and I don't believe there's intelligence to support it. I bet the Russian pilot that gets shot out of the air by an anti-aircraft missile as opposed to an aircraft doesn't believe it either. But it's not really a matter of what you believe or I believe. It's a matter of what we can prove, and what we can prove that Vladimir Putin believes. And I just don't think the proof is there. We'll know in a few minutes, I guess, if there is. I want to address a bigger point, and I want to join with a lot of my colleagues to commend the intelligence community, and especially the DIA, for the outstanding work it did leading up to the invasion. It's the best I've seen the intelligence community perform in my 7 years on the committee, from September until February 24th. Director Haynes, you testify that you think Vladimir Putin underestimated the Ukrainians' skill and their will to fight, and he overestimated his own military's ability. Is it fair to say our intelligence community made the same mistakes based on the testimony we've heard here?
So we assessed prior to the invasion that he was underestimating rather, the Ukrainians' essentially resistance, likely resistance to it. So I think we did well there. We did not do as well in terms of predicting the military challenges that he has encountered with his own military.
General Barrett, could you address this?
Senator Cotton, I will address that. My view was that, based on a variety of factors, that the Ukrainians were not as ready as I thought they should be. Therefore, I question their will to fight. That was a bad assessment on my part, because they have fought bravely and honorably and are doing the right thing. So that was an issue for me as the director of DI.
And I understand that assessing a people's will to fight is one of the hardest things an intelligence agency could do. In some ways, it's a moral or psychological question, not an intelligence question. But in other things, like how long Kyiv would hold out, or these other major cities, or how long Ukraine would still have an air force or air defense systems, did we make mistakes about those assessments as well?
Well, we made some assumptions about his assumptions, which proved to be very, very flawed. And so his actual activity as he got into this fight turned his operation kind of on its head, and what we've seen is a devolvement, if you will, of the operations that he has going on now. And I'd like to save the rest of this for a closed session.
To the extent we can address it here, could you say why you think we made those mistakes?
I think assessing will, morale, and a will to fight is a very difficult analytical task. We had different inputs from different organizations, and we at least from my perspective as a director, I did not do as well as I could have.
Director Haynes, could you give your opinion on why the IC made those mistakes?
I don't think I have anything to add in open session. I'm trying to, we can discuss further.
Okay. I just want to say, because I just don't want to be critical, but these mistakes had potentially real-world policy implications about the willingness of the president or other NATO leaders to provide weapons that they thought might have fallen into the hands of Russians in a matter of hours, or to impose sanctions for something that might have been a fait accompli. And we need to ask ourselves, if we made mistakes about the first 2 weeks of this war, are we making mistakes about the next 2 weeks or the next 2 months and the policy implications those might have? And furthermore, to Richard Burr's point about the use of policy to influence intelligence, I have to say I have concerns that part of the reason the administration went relatively soft on Russia and was hesitant in Ukraine in 2021 is they're relying on Russia to get the bad nuclear deal that Susan Collins was talking about. I have the unavoidable conclusion that influenced part of it.
Senator Cotton, welcome to Washington. Jesus Christ. So, takeaways from that is the intelligence community has no intelligence, they have no common sense, and they have no answers. They underestimated all sides of this, and they have no forward planning beyond this. And there were theories that this administration had never factored, I guess what they factored is Russia taking over and administrating Ukraine. What they didn't factor was Russia losing, because they have no contingency plans for this. Anyway, you guys are back in now, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you guys in Arkansas are blessed to have somebody that sharp representing you, because basically he was saying what everybody was probably thinking for the last 2 weeks, and he's fed up with it. And I think a lot of us are too. And I know you're going to have people who are going to be like, look, why are you so gung-ho about going to war? But the fact of the matter is we're already in it, whether you want to admit it or not. When you provide the weapon, like he's saying, if you provide the weapons that are vaporizing his tanks and vaporizing his aircraft and killing those who are in them, you are the combatant. You are an accessory to their murder. But this is war, so it's not murder. It's a casualty of war. But you facilitated the means of liquidating that asset for the enemy, from the enemy. So you're in this. You are in this. And every week, it's a new thing. That's what I was talking about earlier. If you provide the jets, that is an escalation. Putin would say that, right? Fine. If you provide the javelins that are shooting down my aircraft, you're escalating. That's what he could say. If you're providing the medical assistance to keep my enemy the troops of my enemies alive, you're escalating because you're prolonging the inevitable. He could say that. If you levy economic sanctions on me and my countrymen, you are in this and you are escalating. Now, he already did say that. So the fact of the matter is we're in this. It's just a matter of how many more people are going to die before we finally own up to it and do something about it. And I get it. It should be done by the people who are on station first. Yes, that's true. Like if a missile just happens to cross the Polish border and hit something in Poland, then they have every reason to go in first strike, retaliatory attack. Sure, get it. I get it. I completely get it. All the acting countries around this theater don't have the capabilities even remotely close to ours. Like, we could have wrapped this up in 72 hours. Seriously. Like, if we really thought this was as bad as it was going to be, with the B-2s, you could have just eradicated the entire northern convoy. You could have wiped out almost all the eastern infantry. Like, it would have just been shock and awe in 72 hours. Like, it would have been like the elite Republican Guard of Iraq and the Highway of Death. You remember all that? Like, that was nothing. I think, if anything, the world learned that Russia is not a military superpower anymore. They're weak. They're disorganized. They're untrained. They have no experience anymore. But I'll tell you what, the longer you let them continue this campaign, the more experience they're going to gain. The more battle-hardened they'll become, the grittier they will be, the more brutal and savage they will be to the civilian population. We are making them better soldiers that we have to fight against the longer this goes on. Remember, they're all conscripts, right? There's a couple of elites, there's a bunch of conscripts. We're allowing them to gain the experience they're going to need to make it harder for us to get rid of them, and a lot of our guys are going to die unnecessarily having to kill them later. Just food for thought. That's just my diatribe. It's not the gospel. It's just one man's opinion. And I don't think it's too far off. I think a lot of you would probably just nod your head and go, yeah. I mean, there's degrees of disagreement to this, like maybe not certain aspects of it. But the fact of the matter is, the longer they get to fight, the more they're going to get used to it. The more experience they're going to get. The better they're going to be at it. The more efficient killers they'll become. And then one day we'll sit back and look at this years from now going, we could have stopped this on the first day if we just had a pair of balls. Because the whole world was afraid of the Cold War boogeyman with his finger on the button. Well, guess what? We got the button too. The French do too. The Germans do too. Nobody wants mutual assured destruction. Chances are Putin won't even do it. But you know what? He might call my bluff. We might have to call his. But letting him just get away with things day after day, letting him recruit 3 additional nations worth of soldiers, and then tell Ukraine they can't have 1 additional country's worth of help, that's bullshit. That's one-sided. Like, why does he get away with it? Because he's got his finger on the button? There was a press conference today where I want to say it was Peter Doocy with the White House press secretary, and he said, when are we in the West going to call what we won't tolerate to Putin and put him on his heels? Because all he does is he says what he won't tolerate and what he considers escalation. When are we going to say, hey fucker, we think that all this shit is escalation. Now you want to fuck around and find out, or do you want to calm the fuck down and come to the table? Because that's what it's going to come down to. We're so weak geopolitically that he's getting away with this because he knows that there's nobody in the White House that's going to stand up to him. And it's pathetic. And one of the best suggestions I heard was, who do you send for diplomacy that represents us? And I think Greg Gutfeld came up with the perfect answer yesterday. Because you can't send Kamala Harris. She's useless. She's absolutely useless. She has no purpose except to be a affirmative action check mark. She has no qualifications. She has no experience. She has no clout. She has no tact. She has no eloquence. Maybe she was a good prosecutor. I've heard that several times. I will give credit where it's due. She may have been a brilliant legal mind. But that's all she's got. She's a one-trick pony. She's useless. And she's an embarrassment to the United States every time we send her somewhere. But I know who we send. You have to send the people that Putin respect or fear. And what better representative of the United States but sending 2 former presidents? Imagine this. Diplomacy meeting, Switzerland. Zelensky's there, Putin's there. Barack Obama, who gave up Crimea on his watch, is there, so Putin likes him. And Donald J. Trump. Putin hates him. Putin was reined in because of him. You get the 2 polar political opposites working together in one voice of, stop doing what you're doing, you fucking retard. How does he respond to that? Like, first of all, he probably never imagined in a million years Barack Obama would be in the same room with Donald Trump. But the fact that if they can get both of those guys together in a room with him and Zelensky and say, fucking stop. I think that's the representatives we have to put up there. Who else is going to do it? Who else would make that level of impact? Think of one name and leave it in the comments below. Because I can't think of a better... When I heard it and I heard the justification behind it, I was behind it. I was enrolled. I'm like, nope, that's the solution. You ain't sending Biden. You ain't sending his son. You ain't sending knee pads. You're not sending Nancy Pelosi. You're not sending Chuck Schumer. You can't send Jim Jordan just because he's not geopolitically known. He's not known really outside of this country. You definitely do not send him. No. No, Scott. No.
What's his famous quote?
Let's see. It's be respectful, be professional, but have a plan to kill every motherfucker in the room. But that's the thing. He's not a part of this.
No, but he could be.
In terms of dealing with Putin, he's not a part of this. Now, he could be the security detail. He could be standing there, sure. But I don't think that's going to... It's too many cooks in the kitchen. You just send Obama and you send Trump together. And they walk hand in hand, not figuratively, but... or not literally.
He'd give him one more opportunity to serve his country.
Those 2 would do it. I think there's no better alternative. I
don't think Obama would do it.
No, because in terms of seeing the wood for the trees, he has 2 daughters, and nuclear war would not be good for them. You have to see the wood for the trees. This is what makes diplomacy difficult. You have to put aside all your differences with anybody that you got to do this job with for the greater good. In this sense,
Obama didn't do diplomacy.
No, I know. He's the comfort food. You see, don't you get it? He's the one that allowed Crimea to go to the Russians in the first place. That happened on his watch. So he has to be there because it's like Putin sees him and he thinks, this is going to be a cakewalk. He gave me Crimea. And all of a sudden, as soon as he walks past him, Trump's right behind him. And he goes, oh, shit. And then they both look at him like, with the death glare and say, fucking stop it. You gotta stop this, Putin. You don't understand the level of boots to ass you're about to get. Shit like that, right? That's what it needs to happen. Look, I gave this a lot of thought, a whole day's worth. And if you can come with a better alternative and a good reason how it would work or what they would say, I am all ears. Leave it in the comments. I read everything. I think it would be a fascinating discussion. Anyway, that was a big segment. I thank you all for watching the video. I thought it was important enough for you guys to see it because not everyone gets to watch these things. I caught it in real time while I was at work, and I was like, I need to save this because you guys need to see this, especially if you didn't get a chance to see it throughout your day. And you know damn well the news not going to cover it. They don't do that. They do like 2-minute segments. That was the whole 10 minutes. You would have never saw that unless you were watching it in real time. Or, in this case, I brought it to you. You're very welcome. It's a service. Let's move on. I've got 2 more stories for you. 3 more. Oh, Jesus. Never mind. Okay, I've got about 40 minutes worth of stories for you. Sorry. We'll try to get through them quickly, though. Sorry. I thought that was almost it. All right, so now it's 4:18. You know, this is the part of my day where I'm winding down, you know. I'm getting all my stuff out for UPS and FedEx and all that good stuff. So it's 12:18. It is now Friday morning in Ukraine. And I have this picture for you because it's very representative of what's about to be ground zero if things don't unfuck themselves. The IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi released a statement about the ongoing situation at Chernobyl's nuclear site, saying that the Ukrainian government has lost any and all communications with the plant and will not be able to provide any updated data. Ukraine informed the International Atomic Energy Agency that it had lost today all communications with the Chernobyl power plant, the day after the Russian-controlled site lost all external power supplies. According to the information received before the loss of communication, both of the site's power lines had been damaged, in effect disconnecting it from the grid. To ensure continued power, these lines would either need to be repaired, or the generators holding fuel for less than 2 days would require additional diesel deliveries. The diesel generators were powering systems important for safety, including those for spent nuclear fuel and water control and chemical water treatment, adding that the operator was not able to maintain some of the functions such as radiation monitoring, ventilation systems, and lighting. Grossi also expressed concern for workers at the site who have been held there since the Russian military takeover of the plant. Operating staff must be able to fulfill their safety and security duties and have the capacity to make decisions free of undue stress and pressure. Nobody has seen any of the people who worked there in 2 weeks. Nobody knows how many of them are still alive. Nobody knows if they've eaten. Nobody knows if they've slept. Nobody knows if they're sick or if they have radiation sickness. Nobody knows anything in that power plant right now except it's got less than 18 hours worth of fuel left. Then you know what happens when it runs out. You have another, well, Chernobyl becomes the next Chernobyl, so to speak. But it's not going to be an explosion. I think it's just going to be massive radiation leakage. Moving right along. Now, I don't have a picture for this, but I saw this and I thought it was kind of strange because you all know, especially you guys in the 2A community, that it's kind of weird, but 2:20 p.m. Pacific time. So it's 4:20 for me. Facebook and Instagram parent company Meta is making a temporary change to its hate speech policy to allow for calls of violence against Russian soldiers and Russian President Vladimir Putin, according to reporting from Reuters. Users of the social media platforms in countries including Russia, Poland, and Ukraine will allow posts calling for violence against Russian troops in the context of the invasion, as well as calls for violence against Putin and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Facebook is allowing regional hate speech. I thought they crushed regional hate speech in this country. But it's okay if it's happening over there, and if it's against the Russians and the Belarusians. Right. Moving the goalposts. Who does that sound like? AFT. Anyway, did I get that? Yeah, I did the quiet part out loud again, didn't Al, you wonderful genius. That is perfect. So what we do is we send the expendables and we put them in two of the diesel tankers that are actually empty. They're Trojan horses, and we give them two real ones. Do we send the expendables, or do we send Dominic Toretto? Because that'll involve a Dodge Charger. Maybe a diesel-powered one for once. Anyway, I'm just fucking around.
Chuck Norris.
Nah, he's like 80-something now. That would be... That'd be elderly abuse. Nah, it's gotta be Dominic Toretto. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be this. It'll be the plot for like Fast and Furious. What, 10? Yeah.
Nothing stronger than family.
Well, they already took out a nuclear submarine, right? So I mean, what's next? You got to stop Chernobyl. Yeah, that's it. There you go. The Rock will probably come back for that one.
Ooh, I bet he won't.
No, he would. If he can like put boots to ass to a facsimile of Vladimir Putin. Are you kidding?
I think the only way you'd get him to come back is if he was putting boots to Dominic's ass.
I don't know.
Because those two really do not like each other.
Yeah, but it's not as bad as like Janie Heineman and Adam Savage hate, you know?
Oh, it's worse.
Nah. Besides, Vin Diesel was the one cutting the checks. All right, let's move on.
That's true.
Okay, so to follow up on the video earlier, this was at 5:21 Eastern Time, which is a minute after the last story, actually. A group of Republican senators held a press conference Thursday urging the Biden administration to supply Ukraine with fighter jets. I just want to let people know that on March 6th, the United States policy was greenlighting MiGs to the Ukraine if Poland did it. Now that Poland's asked us to be part of the transfer system, we all of a sudden say no. This came from Senator Lindsey Graham, who called this move dishonorable. The Biden administration has so far refused to provide combat aircraft to Ukraine over fears that such a move could, quote, escalate tensions between the U.S. and Russia. Never mind the Javelins and the Stingers and everything else. Jets? No. Escalation. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa said that she and her colleagues will keep pressing the administration to provide the aircraft. We have seen that this president time and time again, where he says, we can't do this, we can't provide that, said Ernst, until the media and the others provide pressure on him, and then he reverses course. So we're going to continue to put pressure on this president to stand up to abide by the 1994 Budapest Memorandum. Remember, we're in this together whether we want to admit it or not. Wow, it's like they're in my head. Imagine that. So, let's see. Now an hour passes and it's 5:23 my time, which is 1:23 a.m. in Moscow. So I'm taking you to Russia. And this is peak absurdity, okay? Absurdity has reached critical mass. Russia has requested a UN Security Council meeting aimed at discussing alleged U.S. military biological activity in Ukraine. Right. This is from a report from RIA Novosti. This is a news organization whose views align with those of the Kremlin. Shocker. The report says that a Russian Ministry of Defense briefing found that the U.S. spent north of $200 million on biological laboratories in Ukraine as part of the U.S. bioweapons programs. I believe the correct response to this request is, sure thing, bro. We'll get right on that as soon as you leave Ukraine. Now, I have some information regarding this because I took the time to fact check it and ask questions. And I even called my congressman, who used to be my county judge. Imagine that. So, we did spend money in Ukraine. That was true. We spent it trying to help Ukraine shut down their biological laboratories. Because at the time, the political climate the political winds were blowing in the direction of Russia, and it was like, listen, Ukraine, we get that you're working on these things, and we know that you're not a belligerent nation, but you've got a belligerent nation building up on your border. We're going to throw some money your way, and we're going to help you try to take these things down so they don't become grabbable assets by the invaders. Cool? And Ukraine was like, cool. They took the money, and I think they started downsizing and shutting down the labs because it made sense, right? You got Russia coming. If you were developing biological agents, or at least culturing them to figure out how to cure them or fix them or whatever, there's a fine line between finding a cure or a vaccine or weaponizing, right? It's a very fine line. So this is a dangerous industry, and if you've got a belligerent nation knocking on your door, you don't want that stuff accessible if you get overrun. So the fact of the matter is yes, we did throw money at them, but it was to help them get rid of it or shut it down or outsource it or move it out of the country, whatever, But Russia's doing Russian things. You guys are making biological weapons. It's like, no, we didn't fucking make anything with them. Don't you guys get the memo? Our shit's in fucking Wuhan, and Fauci's running it. Apparently the Russians don't have TVs. Or Access Hollywood, or whatever the fuck that shit is these days. Sorry. Let's move on. I have a picture for you for this one. Okay, so this one, actually this is the last picture I have for you for this one. So here it is, and this is where the news starts getting a little scary to me. 6:25 p.m., 7:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Washington, D.C. releases a communique, and this was kind of bounced around by two guys here. One's from Fox News, and I forgot where James Levison's from, but he's there too. Convoy dispersed. Russia begins its assault on Kyiv, and suddenly the convoy disperses. The imagery released by Maxar Technologies shows that the large military convoy that was last seen northwest of Kyiv, near Antonov Airport, has largely dispersed and or redeployed. This is according to the company citing their imagery from Thursday morning local time. The large Russian military convoy that was last seen northwest of Kyiv, near Antonov Airport, has largely dispersed and redeployed. Okay, they just repeated themselves. Armored units are seen maneuvering in and through the surrounding towns close to the airport. Elements of the convoy further north have repositioned and are deployed in the forests and along the tree lines near Lubyanka, with towed artillery howitzers in firing positions nearby. Damage to commercial and residential property is seen in and around Kyiv, and also in Chernobyl, northeast of Kyiv. So this is the part where I kind of want to say I told you so. In a way. I'm not fully right on this, but convoy came down. Squib always thinks that I'm fascinated with the fact that we need to destroy it, but now you're starting to see the reasons why we needed to. Because what they've done is they waited and waited and waited. You've got forces that came from Belarus from the northwest. They have started to make their advance. You've got forces from the northeast who have started to come across the top of the country, and they're about to link up. And the guys in the middle are supply and artillery. And now they're getting ready to make their push into Kyiv. Now they've got everything they need in the places they need to do it. And we had, 11 days to stop it? Didn't happen. Now, the Ukrainian infantry and the Air Force did a really good job of harassing it and making their lives difficult. But they didn't destroy it. And now they're in position. And now you're about to witness the second coming of Stalingrad. Because it's getting to the point now, you already know Putin's pissed. He's had his generals at the Duma. He's chewed their ass across a 30-foot table. He's fielded calls. His attack tactics are getting more brutal and more illegal in terms of the types of weapons he uses. We already have confirmation of the launchers that fire thermobaric bombs. Like, this is, and he's basically telegraphed his next level of aggression. Because the last time he accused somebody of using biological weapons was right before he started using them, and that was in Syria. And now he's doing it again here, and it's about to happen here. And a question was asked during the White House press conference today. So does this mean if Russia actually cracks open biological weapons that we're finally going to respond in kind? And you know what Jen Psaki said? Not a goddamn thing. Because she knows nothing. She's too busy trying to do public service videos about how we have 9,000 plus oil drilling leases and how the oil companies just need to bring them on in and get the oil out. She clearly knows nothing about how to drill for oil. What is she going to know about geopolitics? Probably nothing else.
About the same amount she knows about doing her job.
Well, she does her job very
jack
well.
shit.
No, she does her job incredibly well. Credit where it's due. That woman does a fantastic job of covering the administration's ass. That's her job. She's good at
I
that.
don't think she does a good job.
Well, no, it's just you just don't like the delivery, but she does her job really well. As dumb as she sounds half the time. She's just the whipping boy.
Huckabee's daughter did a damn good job.
No, Kayleigh McEnany did a good job. All right, I'm going to bring Squib in here. Hopefully it'll work. Your mic good? Hello?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, yeah. Okay. All right, so let's see. I already got that one out. Okay, so this is the last story for... Oh, no, there's two. Okay, so I got two more stories for you. One, this happened at 7:49 Eastern Time, so this is pretty late into the night for those guys. A group of 42 GOP senators, led by Senator Mitt Romney and Joni Ernst, wrote a letter to President Biden urging him to allow for the transfer of MiG fighter jets to Ukraine after the request was rejected by DoD. We urge your administration to work with Poland and our NATO allies to expedite the transfer of urgently needed air power, air defense systems, and other combat support capabilities from the United States, NATO allies, and other European partners in Ukraine. The letter read, While we commend the lethal aid that your administration has sent to the Ukraine thus far, we strongly disagree with your decision to delay and deny Poland the transfer or the option to transfer fighter jets to Ukraine. Now, I will be fair, that's not true. They said that Poland can do whatever the hell they want with their jets. It's just they didn't want to facilitate the handoff. I gotta be fair, that's exactly what they said. It's still shitty. Like, on a diplomatic front, you can look at this one of two ways. One, it's shitty because you're bogarting. Or, one, it's good because you're still technically not sticking your neck out and getting involved in violation of the very thing that Putin called you out on before you did it. But then again, this is an asshole who says every day something new is a new escalation, so fuck him. Moving on.
Sean,
Huh.
Sean, no. You put way too much emotion into this. You and that asshole senator from 25 minutes ago have no idea how to fight a war. Okay? You guys keep putting emotion into it. Take the fucking emotion out of it and use your head, and then you can see why there's these problems. Poland pussied out and they threw us under the bus. Poland could have flown those aircraft over, or not flown them, but had Ukrainians
we talked
fly
about
them
that
over,
yesterday.
Whatever. Yes. And instead they go, well, America can do it for us. So that they don't get their hands dirty. So why are we the bad guys? Poland's the bad guys.
None of us are the bad guys. Russia's the bad guys, and they continue to get away with whatever they want to because no one's got any balls to call them out.
Okay, you keep wanting to escalate the war. You keep wanting people to go in there.
Nobody's
and do your
escalating
freaking
the
high-
war but Putin, Squib.
But you want it.
No,
You want
nobody's...
it.
Listen.
Then why do you keep saying
listen,
it?
you know this because you've experienced it, okay? This is really fucking simple. Russians de-escalate through escalation. It's a fact. They've done it since the 60s. He has got us cushing every day with his escalation. And the question that's been asked, which is not emotional, mind you, it's when do we respond in kind, because that's all he understands. He understands strength. right? The last guy in charge kept him at bay because he exercised strength. Now we're at the point where there's already hostilities, so you can't do just diplomacy anymore. You have to make threats that make him think twice. That's not emotion, that's meeting force with equal force. I don't know where you come off that this is emotion. I told you, I gave you both sides of this. I said one side you can say this is good because we're not escalating it to his rules. The other side is we look like a bitch, and you think that everyone else looks like a bitch. That's fine. I'm just saying there's more than one way to look at this.
You keep talking about all the victims, the children, the people in the
Well,
hospital.
that's because that's what they cover. But the fact of the matter is, it's an entire country
That's
getting
emotion.
killed.
That's emotion.
It's people.
That's emotion.
It's people.
It's their targets. It's emotion.
It's people.
It's emotion.
Yes, and it's also against the classic rules of war. What's your fucking point?
The fucking point is it's war. Putin is doing what other military, well, he's not really a military leader, but what has happened militarily before to bring your enemies to their knees, to make them want to stop fighting. And sometimes it makes them want to stop fighting.
In barbaric ways.
And it doesn't fucking matter. The United States of America has done it again and again and again. Are we barbarians?
Have we ever been accused of violating the Geneva Convention? Everybody we ever fought did, though.
We've done it.
Everybody we fought did it.
Okay, look.
Have we sawed off someone's head on TV? No. Did we?
Look,
Simple question, yes or no?
No.
Have we used chemical weapons on any battlefront lately?
You're evading.
What am I evading? I gave you a simple question. You didn't give me a yes or no answer.
I am going with a direct thing, and you're going off on tangents. It's as simple as this. I did a video on it. It's not our war. It's not our war.
We're involved.
We're not involved. You keep going back to that. I tried talking to you about that. We're not involved. You don't even understand the difference between a shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missile and a MiG-29 and a MiG-29. But you don't.
The pilot is still dead, Squib. The plane still goes down.
No, see, you're not. Once again, you're looking at it with emotion. You're not using logic and understanding.
No, I'm looking at it as a burning plane crashing into the ground. There's no emotion behind that.
You don't know how to fight a war.
Just because you served doesn't mean you became a general, though. Think about it. If a plane gets shot out of the sky, whether it was a rocket at low altitude or a plane at medium altitude, somebody provided that weapon of war to take out his weapon of war. Either one is seen as aggression. Either one was a weapon. What's your point?
The shoulder-fired missile, or even a fucking Patriot battery, is to defend the country. The MiG can be used offensively. That's why it's looked at differently. Okay, they're not going to take a Stinger or a Patriot battery or something like that across the border and use it against ground targets? No, but that MiG can fly into Russia. That's why it's different.
Didn't you say yourself yesterday? You just fucked up, dude. You said this yesterday. Okay. We bring in the MiGs, and you fly combat cover over them so they can get outfitted.
I said how to do it.
That's defensive
use. Poland doesn't want to do it but Poland doesn't want to do it. They want to put. No,
but you gave an example that just contradicted yourself. Okay,
no,
the weapon can be a shield or a sword.
No, you're not fucking listening. You're not listening.
No, I listened to you perfectly clear, and so did everyone in this room.
You're taking what I said yesterday and you're using it in a different way.
Because you wanted me to use it. You said a plane can be used as a sword, or it can be used defensively. And you gave me the example yesterday of how it could be used defensively.
Either listen or don't listen.
Well, you can't have it both ways.
I'm not having it both ways. I'm trying to fucking teach you how to fight a war.
But you're not a general. Otherwise, you'd be in the Pentagon doing it for them.
Okay, look.
Guys like us will always do this, and somebody else will make the decision at the end of the day. We're just presenting the two different ways that we're looking at it.
No, we're not. No.
We're not, because you don't want to hear the other side. That's what you're saying right now in front of everybody.
No, the other side has no idea how to fight a war and just keeps putting their emotions in front of their brain.
Why do you think every war is fought the same way every era? They're not. The only thing that remains the same is who's left behind and how many died. That's the only thing that stayed the same, okay? War changed completely after 1945, didn't it? We made the rules different after 45. Now the Cold War made the rules different where we fight proxy wars. And right now, you're telling me that we're fighting a war where the enemy can bring in as many agitators from as many nations as he can recruit, and he can dictate the rules of war for the defender to not pick up any help. And that's bullshit, because then you're not an ally. What's the point of having NATO? What's the point of
They're
having
not.
EU?
They're not our ally. They're
Then
not.
why is everyone so invested in this then? Why do we care about Russia then? I'll tell you why. Because if they take over Ukraine, guess what's next? All the Baltic states. Guess what's after that? Poland. And you might be right. They'll put up one hell of a fight. I am not doubting you on that, okay? You definitely know that. And you taught me a lot about that, okay? I'm with you on that. They're going to go through one state at a time. And by the time they get through to Poland, Iran can have a nuke. China could be in Taiwan. And somebody, not you or me, that has to actually send people to die has to consider all of that. And there's no emotion behind that. That's simple numbers, and that's chess pieces across a board. And you only fight your war in your head one way, because that's all you think you know. And I'm telling you, there's 10 ways to skin a cat. Okay? I'm not being emotional. I'm just saying that there's different ways to look at this. And you don't agree with my way, and that's fine. But I'm not the guy telling them to go die either. And I'm not the one who's telling Putin to do what he's doing. I'm just saying it's happening. And you can't deny the fact that it's been happening for 15 days. Okay? How would you do what's going on right now differently? How are you going to stop him? You're not, are you? You're going to let him keep doing things, and every time you suggest something, he's going to tell you the next day, if you do that, that's escalation. And then what are you going to do? You're going to back down again? How many days are you going to back down? Until he's at your doorstep? Until Europe is under an itchy blanket of his bullshit? Remember, every day he gets to fight, every day he's on a battlefield and his green soldiers get more experience, they're going to become harder and harder to defeat. And then when it's in our face, and then we got to fight that, and they got numbers and like a multinational Axis power, then what are you going to tell me? Oh, I guess I was wrong. Well, guess what? The world can't afford to wait for you to come to that realization. That's how war works. You want to tell me how to fight a war? I'll tell you how it actually works. That's how it works. That's not emotion, dude. That's a storm, and it's coming. And if you don't accept that, then I can't convince you, okay? The fact of the matter is this is a point in history where Russia can finally be put in its place once and for all. Their military is inexperienced, it's weak, their leader is a Cold War relic. His entire military, the modern infantry that he's got, they've never grown up in communism. They only know capitalism. They don't agree with it, but they swore an oath, and they got this FSB dick telling his officers to keep those guys in line, or they can just have an accident and they'll just throw them in the mobile crematorium. Or did you not know about that? Because they truck those things in. People aren't getting their kids' bodies back, dude. Now, I'm not saying these 12,000 people that are dead are all dead. That's probably propaganda. I'm not going to deny that. But like I said in the beginning of the show, the winners are going to elevate their numbers and the losers are going to deny them. But the fact of the matter is this is still a shitty situation. We're involved. We give arms. We're giving the arms at low altitude. And I know what you're saying. You know, MiGs are different. They're faster. They're interceptors. Fine. But you gave me a very good example yesterday, and that's what I'm using. It's like people with concealed carry, right? You carry a pistol every day, I carry a pistol every day. Our detractors look at it as a sword. We look at it as a shield. Smith & Wesson even calls it one, right? It's all about how you employ it. And we're not employing it. They're asking for something. Let's just sling king the things over like we talked about yesterday. Let's put them on trains like we did yesterday. Fine. At least we, you and I, and everyone here, we're talking about solutions. They don't all work. Fine. I could admit that. Like, I don't think they would work on a train. Like you said, there's probably trees on either side of the damn tracks, right? I can take the defeat. That's fine. But at least we're talking about what if this, what if that, what if we do this. That's the whole crux of this argument. That's why we're doing this. Sorry.
Just because I don't think it's right for Russia to invade Ukraine doesn't mean that I think that we should have troops in Ukraine. Just because I can think of a diplomatic way to get the MiGs into Ukraine doesn't mean that I think the United States should be the one to do it. Just because I'm not a general doesn't mean I don't know the first fucking thing about war. I'm your military advisor. And sir, as your military advisor, I would like to formally tender my resignation, as I have discovered that you have the exact same mentality as the adversary, and you don't need my advice. You can just fight them the way they fight, and I wish you the best of luck.
Well, that's kind of how it is with them, though, isn't it? That's what they do. Like, they don't do diplomacy. They're Russians. Like, they just don't do it. At least the ones in charge don't do it, right? Like, we can do diplomacy if the other side is, if they're receptive to it. But the fact of the matter is like the call between, say, Macron and the German chancellor today, right? Do you think Putin even really paid attention to that call? No. You know, and like some people are in the chat are saying the same thing. Like Al was saying the same thing. He doesn't have a phone, not really, like a cell phone. He doesn't really get connected to the internet. And the people who bring him his daily update briefings, they probably lie to him because they don't want to get killed by him. Like the guy is the last piece of a dying relic, right? Ideally, yes. You know, you and I discussed this, and I completely agree. We should not be the delivery system of these things, especially since it's their they share a border. Like, this should be easy for them, right? We get that. I get that. But they just did this because, I don't know, maybe they thought we wanted to take the victory lap for it? Because we do have a bad habit of trying to take credit for everything. Let's be honest. We do that. At the end of the day, this is going to go on, but how many more people are going to die? How many more human interest stories are we going to skip over? Because you're right. They do use women. They do use children. Right. We do that, right? Do you think Putin's ever going to sit in front of a tribunal? No. He won't get caught. He won't allow himself to get caught. He'll off himself. He'll go out like a martyr. But an entire country is going to die for it. And then an entire region is going to have animosity towards the very thing that they thought they were joining, which they thought was better than what they left. And then they find out what diplomacy really looks like. And they're like, you guys don't give a shit about us. And you're right, they don't have a whole lot we want. The only thing that they do have is the desire not to be the thing we don't want them to be. And that's got value, doesn't it? It's up to you. I don't know. It's just a sermon at this point. It's like I said, I don't disagree with you completely. I don't agree with you completely, but I don't disagree with you completely either. And at the end of the day, neither one of us are going to make policy, so it's not a big deal. Okay, I see what you're saying. It's just at the end of the day, it's like nobody knows what's going to work until it's done, right? What do you think Oppenheimer had to face when they said, we want you to create an atomic bomb? He's going to say, what the hell's an atomic bomb, right? What doesn't work yesterday might work tomorrow. What worked yesterday might work, or what didn't work yesterday may work tomorrow. What didn't work yesterday may work tomorrow. That kind of thing. But in the meantime, when our aggressor on the other side is still stuck in 1961, how do you stop that? How do you stop a guy who only understands power or strength? You don't calm down that angry dog, do you? Especially if he really is dying, or especially if he really is just legacy building. He won't take no for an answer. Every one of these diplomacy meetings should be proof of that. Nobody's giving an inch. So how long do we let this go? Do we let it go through Ukraine? Do we let it go through all the Baltic states? Do we let it go to Finland's backyard again? Or Poland's backyard again? Do we let him take over that much territory and build air bases and defenses and build his own area of defense instead of just where he was and keep him contained? How far do we let that go? How long do we let that go before we have to face it? How long do we let the monster feed and get bigger and bigger and bigger before you say, oh, I got to take that thing out. It's getting dangerous. It ate half the world already. What do I do now? These are why we're not the ones in charge, because I don't have that answer. I'm just an ideas guy. You're an ideas guy too. And now we can go and start to be petty about what you think I don't know and what I do know. And that's a road that I will warn you not to go down. Anyhow, last story of the day. Which, I think this was just a reiteration of the DNC playbook. U.S. vows to halt gaslighting after Russia asks UN Security Council for a special meeting on biolabs that the Russians and Chinese are doubling down on claims that the United States is conducting biological weapons research in them across war-torn Ukraine. Assertions that leaders in Washington and Kyiv have called absurd. Russian diplomat Dmitry Polyansky has requested the United Nations Security Council discuss the alleged research at a meeting Friday, the Kremlin-aligned media outlet RIA Novosti reported earlier. So, yeah, we talked about that twice. The report also highlighted allegations from Russia's defense ministry that claim that the U.S. spent $200 million on Ukrainian labs for a purported bioweapons program. Russia claims its troops uncovered evidence during Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, which he calls a special military operation. You ever notice that he says that he's got proof of this stuff, but he never shows you pictures of proof? It's almost like that garbage vortex out in the Pacific no one can seem to find. This is exactly the kind of false flag effort that we have warned Russia might initiate to justify a biological or chemical weapons attack. This is from Olivia Dalton. She's the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the United Nations. She used this example because of the use of biological weapons in Syria. A similar accusation flew from Russia just before they used it. It's just kind of their MO. Russia has a well-documented history of using chemical weapons and has long maintained a biological weapons program in violation of international law. Well, yeah. So, like we said, they're literally playing out of the playbook of the DNC. Always preemptively accuse the other side of which you are guilty of, or are about to be guilty of first. That way you set the narrative. The only difference is if they don't get their way, they don't accuse you of being a homophobe or a xenophobe or a whatever-a-phobe. They just threaten to use nukes, which is the kind of madman we're working against. But hey, let's just do it diplomatically on a one-sided conversation with a dictator who doesn't seem to want to stop, no matter what. Every time you go to the diplomatic meetings, he says, I want the whole country, I want you to disarm your military, you're never going to join NATO, and we're going to administer the area. Deal with it. And the people of Kyiv, who have been relatively free for the past 8 years, is saying, I don't think so. Or at least that's the impression that they've been giving everybody. I don't know. Squib brought up a good point the other day, though. Zelensky does dress like he's trying to go into battle. But he never shows up dirty afterwards, does he? It's always clean and pressed and perfect. So he may be onto something there. But I don't know, because I'm not in the room with him. Anyway, do you two have anything that you picked up after my cutoff here, or are we good? Because we did end up doing 2 hours.
It hasn't been confirmed yet, but reports are that Putin sacked 8 generals.
Fired them.
Oh yeah.
For what? Lack of success?
Probably.
So he fired, well, okay, I guess we'll have to look into this by tomorrow, but I guess you're assuming that, or we're to assume that he's taking out field commanders that aren't getting him results.
Yep.
If that's true, then he is seeing the battlefield. He is seeing what's going on. I think I mentioned somewhere in the chat, somebody actually mentioned that. They were like, maybe he's not getting all his intel. Maybe he's not seeing this.
Or maybe somebody finally decided to tell him, hey, things are not going good. This is what's going on.
Who would deliver that message, though? Because, I mean, he's already lost a tank commander, a paratrooper general, and another general, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got the 2 that he meets in the Kremlin, but I don't think they've ever been in theater.
I would guess it's probably, if I had to take a guess, his lapdog.
No, because that guy's always doing these negotiated meetings of diplomacy that never seem to work. You're talking about Sergei Lapdog? No. No way.
Yeah.
No way.
He's the only one that's got the balls that would probably tell him the truth.
Over the phone, maybe. I don't know.
That's
You
enough
might be
for
right.
Putin to pick up. That's enough for Putin to have somebody like that tell him. For Putin to be like, okay, what the fuck is going on?
You might be right. I mean, all those locations they've been having these meetings are short flights.
Yep.
But then again, Ukrainian airspace is shut down. I mean, think about
You
that,
think Russia
right?
cares about that?
No, but think about that. Like, okay, so there was a meeting in Belarus, right? So they had to fly through parts of Ukraine? Or maybe they took the long way. Maybe they took the long way. You might be right. One was in Turkey, so that was south. So you probably got the luxury of flying around the long way that way, too. Whew. I don't know. It's just, if you ever caught his plane flying over Ukrainian airspace. But then again, see, that's, okay. Okay. Now I understand what he's saying. Sorry, Squib. Now I get it. Now I get it. Imagine if Lavrov had to fly across Ukrainian airspace, right? At an altitude above the shoulder-fired missiles, but right in the range of a MiG. That would technically be one major escalation, because they'll know where that plane came from. Alright, I'll give him that one. I didn't even think about that until just now. Anyway. Deagle, you got anything?
No, I don't.
Alright, well, since we've wasted 2 hours and 16 minutes of your time, and we had a little bit of an episode of the Morton Downey Jr. show, except nobody called each other a slime ball, because neither one of us are slime balls, I'm going to go ahead and play this. And I'm going to thank you all for participating today, either in the panel or in the chat. Sometimes it does get a little hot in here. It's okay. I respect his opinion. That's why I keep having him on. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, maybe check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. This was the War Room. This was day 15. This also looks like it's not going to stop anytime soon. But as long as I can keep up with it, I'll keep bringing it to you. You don't have to always agree with me, but you got to admit, at least I make you think about it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'll have you infringed.
Slava Ukraini!